Hey, this is Dr. Coach K, and we're going to talk about today in this session, to continue part two. On part one, when I started to read The Rich Get Richer and the Poor Gets Prison. As you know, we've been studying from the book of Dr. Jeffrey Raymond and Dr. Paul Layton in their ideology and class of criminal justice. And we're going to develop these concepts so that we can break them down and then build a new system to erase or decrease the mortality rates, to decrease the defectiveness, to decrease the dysfunction, to decrease the neglect and abuse of power, and in hopes that we can build anew by examining and assessing and evaluating these perspectives, these principles, and these ideologies. And we sometimes have to look at other people's work, like math, to see if there's any errors in their calculations, and then correct them, and then build new opportunities. So I'm going to do part two in this session and give us some recommendations and some options to correct those conversations of the problem. So let me just give a summary of part one. The rich get richer and the poor get prison. We were examining the percentages of the caste system or the class system, the social stratification of the economy, the money system, as you say, with the Christianity, that we examine how we produced currency, and we had talked about that. So now you have three teams. You have three leaders and three teams. The class system has a leader as the umbrella, and then you have the three teams with the three leaders. The poor team, team A, and then you got the middle class, which is team B, right? And then you have the rich class, which is team C, okay? And then you have the leaders of those teams, right? And we know now that the number one leader in this world, in the poor team, or the team A, the leader, we have Martin Luther King Jr. was the leader in the 1960s. And then the poor class, or the leader for the poor, was, let me think, who was the leader at the time in the 80s and 90s? We would say the leader was Jesse Jackson. And now in the 21st century, we could say the biggest leader in the game would be kind of like Jay-Z or Snoop Dogg or Diddy, or these are the people that have acquired some influence, like Oprah, in the urban community, right? But the leader for the poor class, for all of the poor communities, it would probably be the Clintons or the Obama. Let's say the leader for the poor is Obama, right? And then the leader for the middle class, I would say, would be the leader that has the most influential of the middle class, that helped the middle class get through hard times, would be, Les Brown, or someone that helped them economically to get through the struggle and transition to get them, to point A to point B. It would be a leader, as like Jesse Jackson was in that generation. So in my mind, it would be someone like the basketball players, probably, because they have big influential move, or football players. So grabbing one of them, put probably Kobe Bryant or One of the biggest, ball players is Michael Jordan. So you can play around with these leaders. And then the leaders for the rich class, that was the most influential, that changed or moved or shifted the influence probably would be the Rockefellers, right? They pretty hold it pretty steady over the years. Or you can probably be influenced by, the Rothschilds, but they are pretty stable, leading the rich as the leader for some time now. If there is someone different in the behind scenes, you can correct me. But if you look at the leader for each class, you can see the behavior ideology. So now we have, Obama I would say Obama would be more for the middle class. And then the Rothschild, Rockefeller for the rich. And then the poor, I would definitely do, the entertainment industry, and pulling someone from the entertainment industry. That was the most influential. I would give it to Denzel Washington, because he did a lot of influential things to change the culture for the poor. This Keenan Reeves is another one. Keenan, I think those are the ones that have been most influential for the poor, and to bring them up or elevate them to a highest function standard for poor. You have to be the best life in each case system, in each class system. And when you go through prison, you have to have that diversity of character, of perspective, of ideology. And I think a lot of the characters they played in their fictional movies helped move a culture to their best self in that class, or that stratification of socialism. Or I should say socialism, people get really sensitive, but social normalcy. So let's move on. Now that we identify the leaders to these teams, the poor is considered like the underdog team that is untapped talent. They're disenfranchised. So that means it doesn't matter if they're talented. It doesn't matter if they're superior. It doesn't matter if they're the strongest of them all. They are put in a system that suppresses their gifts. So it's kind of like they have like a foot on their neck. They are kept from moving to the next ceiling, and that's the middle class. It's like they have gatekeepers or a wall that keeps them from the middle class. And so we have identified the middle class leader for the 21st century. And in that middle class, we have a quality of life. And then they get to the highest point in their class system, and they're not allowed to get into the rich class, as if they have also trolls, that keep them out from getting in. Okay. So we identified these three leaders just for now, because as you can tell, the poor class have more than one leader, and the middle class has more than one leader, and so does the rich class, and they work together as one, like one group, and that becomes their leader. But we're not going to get into the breakdowns of the identities, but we're going to talk more about the part 2, how this system works as a monopoly. It's actually, I keep saying as a monopoly, they wish it was a monopoly. It's not. They pride themselves as building a monopoly system, but it really is not technically, because in the monopoly system, everyone that is born into the system, which we call the players, they get money, and they all get the same amount, even though the spending changes and decision making changes throughout the game, where someone can go bankrupt. They still start off with the same amount of money, where in the real system you don't have that. You have people that start out sometimes negative, and sometimes it's a high number. They come into life in debt. And there's some people that come into life with a surplus because of inheritance, right? And so this system is definitely not a monopoly. And I think they're calling it capitalism, but they're trying to use monopoly as an identifier, which is a poor quality identifier because it's not the most identifier of capitalism you could use to say win-lose. It's a win-lose system, right? It's not a win-win system. It's not a lose-lose system. It's a win-lose system. And I'm trying to think, do we have any like family game that I can relate capitalism to? Because monopoly is not it. No. Right now I can't think of a game that would best describe capitalism. But if you do, hit me up, email me. If you want to be private, text me. But I'm going to say it's a win-lose system, okay? Then you have communism, and then you have socialism, right? And then you have imperialism. All these systems is a win-lose system. There's a few systems that is lose-lose. And the reason why it's lose-lose is because it's underdeveloped. And so we call this the underdeveloped countries, because no matter what system they have, it's just so underdeveloped. They can be exploited, killed, destroyed, and they're sacrificed and to be slaughtered because they don't have a system to protect them. They don't have a covering. So that's why it is a lose-lose. It's called underdeveloped. Then you have some countries or some communities that's, one or the other, win-lose. Some of them win, some of them lose. I don't think you have a win-win system yet. Not even God himself has a win-win system. I mean, in the future, it is predicted and forecasted there will be a win-win system that's created, that God himself will do the work, and put the labor, the sweat and blood into building a win-win system. And so the old systems will pass away because of it. But right now, as we speak, there is no such thing as that system. I mean, yeah, you can argue that when Christ came and sacrificed his life, he built the win-win system. But to be realistic and technically, even if he did build the win-win system in that sacrifice, it still takes time for it to transform into a mature, old growth system that can really do some damage, like swallow up death. So it's a mustard seed. So it's really not in the form of a developed system where it can cover people in life. It can cover people in the afterlife because it's not strong, I would say not fortified yet, because it's still relatively new, meaning newborn. But we have great hope and great anticipation that it will grow in its age over time to be a magnificent system, a win-win, right? It will develop, and after many drafts of it, it will turn into a very potentially powerful of all time, system of systems, right? Because of the win-win potential. And that is a paradigm shift. I mean, even its mustard seeds have great accomplishments. So imagine if and when it becomes a full-grown strand, symbolic tree, old growth even. So I'm going to be bold and say this is why it's projected and prophesied it being an everlasting government, because it's a win-win solution to all systems. But right now it's still in its infancy. It's still in its incubator stage. It's relatively young in its systematic processes. Okay, but it's doing great things even as a baby. Great potential. One of the things that I thought about was when I was watching the TV show Charmed Ones, the old school one, the baby, and I noticed that they're using this same storyline for a lot of the stories of entertainment. The baby is so powerful that sometimes the baby's gift has healed the mother from their death or their illness, or gave them, supernatural abilities. So it's kind of like that. This system, this win-win system that's supposed to be created by Christ in his sacrifice through the blood of Christ and through the power of the Holy Spirit and the approval of the Father. This system has been proved to be a win-win, the best system at all systems of all times, right? But in its infancy stages, it's already to raise the dead. It's already trained the worst to be the best, things as such. But it has not yet overcame death. I mean, it's got victory of death, meaning it has the solution to death that makes it win-win, but it has not surpassed its infancy to swallow up death all around, where death is no more, right? It's going to be probably an old growth system to be able to swallow up death, because that's one of the oldest systems in the law, right, of God. So let's just bring it down to immortality, user-friendly, right? The systems of colonization, imperialism, right, and capitalism is like death. It's a pretty what we call ingrained system, and people practice it without even wanting to practice it. It's just instinctively. To be able to swallow up a system like that, the Christ notion system of win-win would have to be more than a teenager to combat that system. Don't get me wrong. It's pretty powerful system, the win-win solution, but these type of solutions that had the approval of the law. That's why I said that the law made everyone die, because the system was a lose-lose system that is reversible under grace. And because of grace, the people are pardoned because of Christ. And that sacrifice created a win-win solution. And that's what reversed death. But because of its infancy, its youthfulness, it is not going to wipe out a death, as silviculture say in the tree of arborists and foresters. It cannot wipe death off the map, but it can reverse it. It can manipulate it. It can swallow it up. The process of swallowing, if you ever watch Geographic and watch a snake or a shark, or how they swallow things, it's a process. It's not like a fire just completely disintegrate things, or like silviculture clear cutting things. It's a slow process. So when you think of swallowing up death, you think of a slow process, because the win-win solution is infant. It's just been born into the society less than 2,000 years ago, so I would think it would have to be like 1,000,000 years, even billion years, to be able to clear cut death, or to get death at its, bare minimum. That's what we call disease or decay or aging. All these things is the process of our bodies disconnecting itself from life, or the protection of life, right? But that doesn't mean we're permanently dead, because of this infinite system of win-win through Christ we call grace. We know that death is swallowed up. So that means it's reversed. So when you think of being pardoned, it's a system. You got to go through a process of getting convicted, and then going through a sentence, and then somewhere in that journey, you get pardoned. That's the process, and it's slow, unfortunately, very slow. And so in the meantime, you can do all you can to live a healthy life, a fit life, where your body doesn't wear and tear, where your body is not dismantled or, decayed. And you can do your best to slow down the destruction of your body, destruction of your mind, destruction of your heart, destruction of your city, your communities. See, these are the dysfunctions of sin or errors or inability to be perfect, right? So you are through this imperfection through mortality, right? But when you die, because of the win-win solution, the grace, it reverses it. And that's where the word resurrection, a newborn, transition into this hidden life. So this is why I get off the subject, because it ties to prison life. It ties to the rich, the poor, the middle class. These are the conflicts that happens in our lives, within ourselves, within our universe, the cosmos, within each other, good, bad, and ugly, when we're like in this together, And what we can do is do the best we can by receiving as much wisdom, recommendations that are useful, that are productive, that are high performing in us, until we are completely transformed, which I call until death is completely swallowed up, until, you are pardoned. That is the process, like how you wait for a judgment or a conviction. Same thing if you go to a store and you wait for your change. You made a transaction, you made an exchange. You have to wait for it before you can take your product and leave. Same thing with grace. You have to wait for it, the transaction to be made, to get the exchange of what the product promises, right? God promises these things, and so you have to wait for that transaction, for that exchange to be pardoned in grace, the win-win solution. So now that we talked about all these systems, how they interact with us and how they're created by man-made thoughts and gestures, with their relationship with God, with their faith of God, through their confidence. It's like an artist learning how to draw. This is how societies are made. They have an interaction with God, and through that process, they develop these systems, and they come out imperfect. And of course, when you have imperfect solutions and imperfect manifestations, you get results of negative reinforcements or positive reinforcements based on the kind of energy you put into it, right? Evil or good. You could go to the childhood story, biting the apple of good or evil, or both, So that's how you get all this diversification, not biology. We're not going to talk about biology, physics, and chemistry. We're just talking about the metamorphosis of diversity in our construction of external interactions with each other and with our environment, and our internal interactions with each other and our environment. Some people's like, what do you mean by internally? Well, that's all of the conversations you have that never get to the external world. The kind of relationships you have with people in your mind, but it never manifests in the real world. That's the dream state, the visualization, the quiet conversations that never get exposed, right? Those are similar to saying the external world is equal to the internal world, and the internal world is equal to the external world. What does that mean? Is that you create two levels of manifestations, what makes you a multidimensional person. So you have an internal world that builds the spiritual you, which is the power of you. And then you got the external world that builds the external you, that builds the power of you on the external world. And together, internal and external, if you ever get to become one, right? And that's fully consciousness, right? You can merge those two worlds together and become a new creature. And a lot of people call that the high functioning creature of both worlds, the hybrid, right? So we're going to go ahead and give you a recommendation today in this session. So I'm going to start in The Prosperous Soul by Dr. Cindy Trim. This is also a 200-page book. Wait, let me see here. Sometimes my glasses. Yeah, this is a more than 200-page book. This is more of a 300-page book. And we're on page 42. Let me see. Did I leave a spot for us? Why didn't I put a marker? Sometimes I put a marker to where I left off, and sometimes I don't. Okay, so it doesn't look like I made a marker to where I left off. So let me see something. Yeah, I didn't have that. Okay, so I'm going to just start with the prosperity point, and that's the last point on page 42. Then we'll do 43, and I will make sure I put a marker on it. Do you want God to be able to trust you with more? What specific steps are you willing to take to see permanent change in your life? Do you want to be more prosperous socially, professionally, excuse me, and financially? Do you want a healthier body, a healthier mind, and a healthier spirit? Success can certainly happen overnight, but if it did, would it destroy you or propel you to the next level? Oddly enough, the answer to all of these questions is rather simple. Even though it can be far from easy, the answer is locked up in 3 John 2. You will prosper and be in health in proportion to how you prosper your soul. Prosperity thought. Each of us guards a gate of change that can only be opened from the inside, by Marilyn Ferguson. So what can I do to break that down? We're going to stop there and go to page 43 next time. And I did make a marker. So how you grow as you grow, right? What does that mean, basically? In order for you to be completed, healed completely, you have to acknowledge there is 3 witnesses of yourself, right? Your body is one witness. Your spirit is the second witness. And your soul is your third witness. So you have a trinity in yourself that is 3 different people, but they're not. It's almost like the Trinity of God. He made us in his image, in his likeness. So if he's a trinity, a tribunal community, so are we, So you're never alone. So you have your body that is highly sophisticated, highly made by the hands of God. Okay, so in his infinite wisdom, infinite prosperity and hands or craftsmanship, your body was made. If you wanted to, you could put a mark on your body because it was made by the design of God, which is our creator. One of these days we'll get to know the name or remember who it is, because we can't really delve into this. Who is God, what he looks like, how he sounds, and how we are connected to him as a parent, right? All we know is we were created. We are not, if you want to say we are creator and not just created, you could think of the water, formula. In the water, like an ocean, you can grab a cup of water out of the ocean, and then you can pour it in different cubes for ice and put it in the freezer. Now you got ocean water in cubes. So there's more than one form. So is the cubes created beings, or is it the creator? Because it came out of the ocean, right? Same thing, okay, with us. We were created beings, but we are still one with the Creator because we are made of its substance, because he chose to make us of his substance or of its substance. And we're not no Big Bang Theory. Well, their Big Bang Theory can be of something different, but the Big Bang Theory is suggesting that we were created by an accident of the universe being transformative, like metamorphosis, right? And that's another story, another day, evolution and the errors in that mathematics, okay? Well, we're not going to talk about all of the errors in our science because we know that this is an imperfect world because we make mistakes. So like a test, you could be 90% or 100%. Who grades you is definitely better be on top of their game, because it says you'll be judged harsher because of your judgment, which is your evaluation, your examination as an authority. That's a different level, different ball game. But anyway, prosperity. So if your spirit grows, but your body does not grow, and your soul kind of grows together as one entity, you kind of is like wonky, right? It's almost like a house. If you built your house kind of like the foundation with straw instead of concrete, and then you place the foundation or the structure on top of it with bricks, and then you place the accessories and all of the landscapes with mud, you have a wonky contraption, or what do you call it, property, ecosystem. But if you build the foundation with concrete, and then you build the house with rock, and then you lay out the landscape with rocks, pebbles, or whatever, and then you use the furniture with some type of stone, different types of stones, like, we can do jasper, whatever, all these stones. There's beautiful different stones. Then you have a different elegancy that is built on a even playing field, from the foundation to the structure to the landscapes. That's who we are. We are a trinity in body, and then the soul, and then the spirit. Some people say we can, kind of user-friendly tech terminology, the body, the heart, and the mind. But I'm not going to go into that with the consciousness and the hyper-consciousness, right? We're not going to use all these different metaphors and different analogies. We're going to keep it simple and just say body, soul, and spirit, right? And we're going to use the illustration of foundation, the house, and then the landscape, like I just did. And we built with the materials, rock. So if you build the materials of rock 90% to 99%, then of course your prosperity is going to be solid. It's going to be fortified. But if you dip and dabbled into straw, wood, and mud, right? And dirt, you're going to be all over the place for consistency in your final results. That's why it says count the costs. And your prosperity is going to be inconsistency. So, how do you get the clean slate and detoxify your life and build ground up on solid ground? It's almost like reprogramming yourself. And that's where it comes in, say, renewal of your mind. So you got to scratch a lot of the disciplines if you want to get consistency and get founded on solid ground. So you're making your body on solid ground. That's healthy lifestyle. Then you want your mind on solid ground. Is positive thoughts or promise driven thoughts of God. And then you want your heart, your attitude, your emotional intelligence to be on solid ground, which we call in the soul, what you feel, your passion. You have to be careful what you feel most of the time. If you feel happy most of the time, you choose happiness, then you get a product of consistency of happiness. So people say, how do you do that when you have death around you? Choosing happy, that's the biggest challenge. To produce consistency, that prosperity, you have to find your happy place in a miserable world. And sometimes those are memories. Sometimes that is a dream you enjoy thinking of. It's visualization work, right? And it has to dominate your passion, your emotional intelligence to influence and make it an impact on you externally and internally. It's like a meditation. You got to consistently think of it day and night to be prosperous on the level of consistency, right? Internal, external prosperity. We always run out of time, but we'll have to do a part 3. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. This is Dr. Coach K signing off. One love, much love, all love. Peace and blessings. Take care of each other and stay safe.